Good afternoon, everyone. Assuming you are in Ireland, welcome to the first event of the IABA Ireland chapter, the first of the year. Today, we have a very interesting topic, which is operationalizing the business analysis core concept model. And we're very grateful to have Oge today as our speaker. Just a quick introduction on the agenda for today. So as usual, I will spend the first couple of minutes introducing our speaker. We will then have the main event of the day, which is the presentation itself. And again, as usual, we will have hopefully 5-10 minutes in the end for a Q&A session. So as you can see in this Zoom, for the ones that are new here, you won't be able to share your screen or your camera. You won't be able to talk, but you will be able to interact through some tools that we have for you, and also through the chat. You have a generic chat, and also you have a QA section. And any questions that you might have during the session, please drop them in the QA section, and they will be addressed at the end of the session. Sometimes we get things wrong and we don't give the proper configuration. So if you're not able to write messages in the chat, let us know in the QA. If you're not able to write in the QA, let us know in the chat. And I promise I will fix it during the course of the event. And if that happens, my apologies in advance. Okay, so after that piece of governance, allow me to properly introduce our speaker. So as I mentioned before, our speaker's name is Ogi. I will not attempt to say her last name. I'm sorry, I respect her too much to do that. But it's there on the screen. So Ogi, she is a business transformation enthusiast. She is also part of the IBA Halifax chapter. She's responsible for the professional development area. She has worked as a project manager, business analyst, and also as a change manager. She has more than 15 years of experience in transformation projects. In terms of her degree, she has a first-class degree, and she has several certifications under her belt. For example, the CBAP, PMP, PROSCI, and CPOA. And she also helps the BA community through her company, which is called Pollard Consults, which is an IABA endorsed education provider. So it's a very good resume. I think we're in a very good hands today. Ogi, I think the floor is yours now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are joining us from today. I want to say a big thank you to the IIB Ireland chapter for this opportunity to share with you today. I'm not here to teach you. I'm just here to interact with you and learn from the process, right? So thank you to the president and to all the team members. Thank you for the work you do. To advocate and help business analysts across the globe to become better in business analysis. Yeah, thank you. And thanks for joining us today. Thank you to the audience, making out time to join us today. I appreciate your time, and I hope I won't bore you. So I'll turn off my video for the presentation. You can put in your questions in the Q&A section. We'll address all the questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. So I hope you can hear me.
Yes, okay, everything. I can hear you, and I can see your screen. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the title of our presentation today is titled Operationalizing the Business Analysis Core Concept Model. Yeah. So my experience working with BAs, business analysis professional, is that only a few people know or have a clear understanding of the business analysis core concept model and how to exactly put it to use in their business analysis work. Most business analysts encounter the business analysis core concept during their study of the BABOK for their certification examination. And as soon as they leave the examination hall or the testing centers, they forget all about it. During their studies, and this is what I've learned from interacting and my research, working with students and learners, during their study, they only focus on memorizing it as it is written in the BABOK, without putting much effort in attempting to understand its purpose and application. Can anyone relate with this? Can anyone relate with what I've talked about, like just memorizing the core concepts, 6 of them, just for the purpose of passing the exams? And have you thought further about how you can extend this? How can you really put this into use in your work? Okay, we'll learn more about that as we go along. Yeah. In fairness to most people, the current BABOK version 3 does not contain so much information on how to apply various tools and techniques as contained in the BABOK, right? But IIBA is doing a great job of augmenting the content of the BABOK with how-to videos and articles in the IIBA Knowledge Hub. So if you're an IIBA member, you should have access to those wonderful and massive resources that would help you apply so many concepts and techniques as you learn them in business analysis. Again, they also have lots of webinars, some public, private, happening weekly, that can also help you understand how to apply some of all these techniques. So let's go back to business analysis core concept. The business analysis core concept model is a powerful conceptual framework that not only depicts key and foundational concepts in the practice of business analysis, it also highlights interrelationship among each concept. These concepts are true for all types of business analysis work, irrespective of your domain, your industry, or methodology. Some business analysts, due to lack of experience, fall into the trap of jumping quickly into solutioning without taking time to understand and clearly articulate the needs, the stakeholders, the context, and this leads to delivering suboptimal solutions. I would recommend that I would therefore say that a better understanding and the application of the business analysis core concept model would support better business analysis and deployment of solutions that create and deliver value to stakeholders. So let us get into the matter for today. During the course of this presentation today, we'll be looking at the definition of business analysis core concept. What is business analysis core concept? We'll look at briefly how did it come about? What's the story behind the core concept? Why did it come about in the first place? Then we'll move on to talk about the purpose. Yeah, we know the what. Why business analysis core concept model? What is it? Why should we understand this? What can we use it for? There has to be a reason behind the business analysis core concept. It's not just for passing exams. There is a need. There is a reason why it was created in the first place. We then look at the concepts, each of them. There are 6 of them. We look at each of them, what each means, and how it, I have a case study we'll use across when we speak about this 6 concepts and how we can apply it and how we can even understand it better using those case study. Using the case study. Then I would also show you a solution delivery framework I have designed for myself using this core concept. Again, this is demonstrating the power and the potentials within the core concept model. I would also share with you the business analysis core concept canvas that I use in training my students, and I'll tell you how that also came about. We'd also look at applications of this Canvas, how I've used it and how I continue to use it in my day-to-day work as a business analyst. Now, John, can we have the first poll question? So my question for you today is, are you familiar with the business analysis core concept? Because I want to know the level of knowledge. I want to understand what people know about the core concept, how many people know about it. Okay, we have about 29 people. Okay, so we have 16 people. Yeah, Alex. Okay. We have about 7 more people can, yeah, is it a yes or a no? I really want to gauge understanding. So we have, so far we have about 33% of our audience. Okay, 39% of our audience that doesn't know what the business analysis core concept is. Now, for the 61% that know what it is, I'm interested to know what have you used it outside? Do you use the business analysis core concept in your work? And if you can put in the chat, how do you use it? Just a brief explanation or description of how you use the business analysis core concept in your work. Alex, if you can start off for us, I'm curious to know. So the next question I said is how, for the 61%, that's about the 14% in the audience that are familiar with the business analysis core concept model. How have you used this core concept model in your work as a business analyst? If you have not used it, but you know, you are aware, you are familiar with it, you can just say in the chat that you are familiar with it, but you've not been able to apply this to your work. Okay, Da Vinci, oh my goodness. Okay, she uses it to identify the problems and potential solution, to facilitate communication with the business, and to document the executive summary of project. That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Any other person wants to share how they use it? Alexander says, okay, let me read this very quickly. Alexander said, for the BACCM, it's a mental framework which I use to better understand the what and BA does and why. Thank you very much, Alexander. David says, I use it to gauge and have a good understanding of a change. It serves as a framework to understand any change, the context, the stakeholders, needs, and solutions. Thank you very, very much. Sarah says, I'm familiar with it and it helps in the planning and execution of project details. Thank you, guys. Very awesome. I love the feedbacks I'm getting. Okay, thank you so much. Let us continue briefly with our presentation this evening. Okay, time. I hope I got that sound correctly. She uses it for daily tasks to gather requirements, manage stakeholders, model assess, and to be state. Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing. Okay, we're going to continue very quickly with our Mercy says she tries to understand the business needs, the context, stakeholders, the business value, and the business value of the need. And James says it helps when starting a project. I use it as a guide for context, change, stakeholder, needs, and solution. Thank you. That will be all I can say for now so that we don't spend the whole day here. But thanks so much. I love the engagement and thanks for the feedback. So let us look at what the business analysis core concept model is all about. So this is, I guess a lot of us that are IIBA members, you should be familiar with this, this visual, right? It's on the IIBA website and it represents all the components. It shows the 6 concepts that make up the core concept model. And if you ask me what is business analysis core concept model, in very simple terms, I'll tell you it is a pictorial representation of the definition of business analysis. Again, I say the business analysis core concept model is a pictorial representation of the definition of business analysis. Now, I want someone in the audience to prove this for me. Can anyone remind us what the Babcock V3 definition of business analysis is? how does the business analysis body of knowledge, how does it define business analysis? Yeah, we're allowed to Google quickly, copy and paste in the chat. It's okay to do that. Okay, thank you, Deven. She says, business analysis is the practice of enabling change in an enterprise by defining needs, recommending solution, delivering value propositions, stakeholders in a particular context. Thank you so very much. And now the next slide I have here repeats exactly what Deven has given us here, right? So business analysis is all about enabling change, defining needs, recommending solution, delivering value to stakeholders within a context. And you see the keywords I highlighted, which is in the definition of business analysis. These are the same words that are highlighted in the core concept model here. So does anyone agree with me that now the core concept model is a pictorial definition of the business analysis? I hope I get some agreement in the chat. Okay, let's continue again. So the business analysis core concept model consists of 6 concepts. Solution, need, context, stakeholder, change, and value. This concept defines a conceptual framework for the business analysis practice. It encompasses business analysis, what business analysis is all about, what it means to be performing business analysis work. And this definition is true regardless of your perspective, your industry, your domain, the methodology you're applying, and at every level of the organization, this definition is true. You agree with me that the need, the solution, context, stakeholders doesn't change whether you are in an agile environment or waterfall. It still remains the same, basically. The model represents a set of ideas, core concepts, and the key relationship among them. You see all the lines that are joining each of the core concepts. Together, they form what you would call a system, right? The core concept one core concept cannot be fully understood until all 6 are understood. So one is not more important than the other. They are all equally important. The model describes a set of connected things that form a complex whole. It describes the core and the essence of business analysis work. Or in another word, I can also say it describes the core, the essence of performance improvement, because what you do in the practice of business analysis is to improve the performance of the organization. Let's talk about the history. How did the core concept come about in the first place? So the BACCM, the Business Analysis Core Concept Model, you will hear me say the BACCM, just know I'm referring to the Business Analysis Core Concept Model. It was first conceived in May 2011 when the core team for the BABOK Guide version 3 met. So in 2021, a team was put together to review the BABOK V2 so that it can come up with the version 3. The first iteration of the BACCM as contained in the V2 had only 4 concepts, and these concepts were need, change, solution, and stakeholder. After extensive analysis and debate amongst the team updated the core concept to include 2 additional concepts, value and context, and this was in September 2021. The review of the BACCM was a necessary step to understanding the aspect of the BABOK that needed to be improved. This is because the business analysis core concepts are foundational to the practice of business analysis. Hence, it was important for them to revisit the foundation before they build the new house called the BABOK V3. And this is also because the strength of your foundation determines the integrity of your building. So it was a necessary step. So let's look at the purpose, the why. We've talked about the what, we've defined the BACCM as a pictorial representation of what business analysis is all about. So for me, this is me sharing my perspective. The BACCM model is based on the principle of seeing the whole. It's based on the principle of system thinking, big picture thinking. You want to see the whole, you want to consider, you want to enable change from the perspective of the whole. You want to apply a holistic change. You want to solve problem holistically. So the BACCM model is instrumental to understanding the type of information you need to elicit for whatever business analysis work you are doing, how you have to analyze it, how you need to manage your task and activity. It is a great way to think about any business analysis work you are engaged in a holistic manner. The core concept model forces you to think beyond the what, not just the what work you are doing. It also moves you, pushes you to consider the why, the who, the how, the where, and the when. The business analysis core concept model is useful for performing better business analysis by holistically evaluating the relationship amongst these 6 concepts. It also helps you to evaluate the impact of each of these concepts at any point during the work. The core concept model helps you to establish a foundation and a path. It helps you determine what methodology do I want to apply to this work? How should I approach this work? Again, the core concept model can also be a checklist to ensure that you are holistic in your approach and no part of the organization is left as you enable the solution. No part is ignored. You don't have missing requirements. You are not enabling change that will fix a problem in one end of the organization and break it in the other end of the organization. Sometimes business analysis professionals are quick to jump to solution mode. And this is the huge reason why most projects fail. So using the BACCM model as a checklist can be a mitigation to that risk. It helps keep the work on track, helps you to deliver a solution that is holistic and that meets the need. It addresses the needs of all the stakeholders and overall creates value for the organization. So basically, in summary, knowing the business analysis core concept model is not just enough. For you to really appreciate the business analysis core concept model, you need to understand the purpose of it so that you are able to unleash the potentials embedded in the core concept model and the interrelationship. Now we're going to look at each of the concepts, remember there are 6 of them. So we're going to take a look at each one of them. And I have a case study. And a simple description of my case study is a sales and marketing team that they're encountering issues. So they engaged a business analyst to help them review their process, their activity, to help them articulate their needs and recommend a solution. And of course, go all the length to implement that solution. So bearing that in mind, first, the first concept of stakeholders. So stakeholders are persons that have a relationship with the business analysis work you have to do. They typically have interest in the work. They may be impacted by the work or they may influence the outcome of the work. For our sales and marketing case study here, so let's assume there's a process improvement work to be done within the sales and marketing team. So the sales and marketing team definitely will be interested. They would influence the work and they will be impacted by your business analysis work. So they are your key stakeholders. However, they are not the only stakeholders within the organization. So your primary stakeholders is not the end of your stakeholder. You need to perform interface analysis. You need to perform process model to identify the other roles or stakeholders that are involved in creating value for that business unit. So here, the operations team might be good candidates as other secondary stakeholders because they may not have influence or high interest in the work to be done, but they'll be impacted by the outcomes. And they need to be brought to the table in your conversations, in your business analysis work. Also, the finance team, they may have influence. They may not be interested in the work you are doing, but they might quite be influential because they may have to approve the budget. You need to procure maybe a technology tool that requires budgetary approval. So you need to carry them along. You don't want to get to a point where you then need to award contract and somebody is saying, oh, there was a process that needed to be followed, we're not carried along, and you are experiencing resistance for your project. So some questions that can help you determine who your stakeholders are. The first one I have here is what roles are impacted by the process or business within scope of the work you are doing? Who will be impacted by the change or the solution you are enabling? Whose job role and tools will change as a result of the business analysis work? Who needs to be trained and who needs to be communicated with? So the second concept we'll talk about here is the concept of need. So a need can be a problem, it can be an opportunity, it can be a constraint that needs to be addressed. Needs will trigger changes by motivating stakeholders to act. Sometimes changes or situations within the business environment can trigger needs. So you will notice that the concept of need and change, they are very, very related. A need can be a problem, it can be an opportunity or a constraint that needs to be addressed. A constraint, you can, I think problems are easy, problems and opportunity are easier to understand because a problem can be something that is not something that is impacting the improvement and overall business outcomes. While an opportunity can be a situation in the marketplace, the organization wants to take advantage of to maybe increase market share, increase profitability, and customer experience. Constraints you can also see that as maybe regulatory requirements that are imposed on the business by regulators. And of course, we know as businesses, depending on the industry, non-compliance can be very expensive and it could also result in reputational risk. So constraints can trigger projects. You can have projects that are just compliance projects. So examples, again, let's take in our case study, the sales marketing department case study. A problem here can be an inefficient sales process or inefficient order fulfillment process. You might have a high rate of customer complaint because of inefficient process, or suddenly you notice there's high customer churn rate and low retention rate. And then the sales and marketing team is calling for a business analyst to come review the situation to understand the root cause of the problem. An opportunity can be implementing a new technology or designing a new product to enable the sales and marketing team. And of course, the entire organization take advantage of a situation in the marketplace. Constraint, like I mentioned earlier, could just be you reorganizing or adjusting your processes to be able to comply with regulatory requirements. Some questions you may want to ask when you want to determine the needs of the organization are, what are the actual needs you are? Of course, when you meet the stakeholders, they tell you what they think the needs are, but you want to perform analysis to understand what the actual needs are. Sometimes it could just be the description they provide to you could just be symptoms. So you might need to do further analysis to understand the root cause. Sometimes you also want to understand if these are just expressed desires of an influential stakeholder that wants something done. Is it a real need for the organization? Also, you want to ask the question, can we live with this problem? Like, is it worth throwing dollars into? Can we live with this? Can we do nothing? Because those are also options you can consider while you are doing your analysis to understand and define a business need. We're going to look at the next concept very quickly, the concept of change. So changes are controlled act of transformation applied to an organization. Changes are effected through deliberate and controlled application of business analysis principles, methodologies, and practices. Sometimes changes can also be described as tasks and activities that helps you create a solution. A change is only complete when a solution is implemented and is delivering value to stakeholders, or when stakeholders' needs have been fulfilled. That is when you say a change is complete. In applying this concept to our case study, examples of changes in the sales and marketing team can be activities that improve the process, the sales and marketing process, the order fulfillment process, reducing turnaround time, and increasing customer satisfaction. It could also be enhancing and upgrading a software or implementing a new software solution. Changes can be the activities involved in training employees on a new process
or the use of a technology tool. It could also be a design of a new product or enhancement of existing products. Let's talk about the concept of solution. So the solution is a means of satisfying a need by creating value within a context. Solution satisfies needs by resolving the problem that is experienced by the stakeholders. It can also, a solution can also satisfy a need by allowing stakeholders to take advantage of an opportunity in the marketplace. A solution can also enable stakeholders to respond appropriately to constraints and comply as regulators demand. So for our sales and marketing department here, an improved sales and marketing process can be their solution. Also, the implementation of a CRM tool can be a viable solution for them. A trained and knowledgeable staff, I'll describe it this way: skilled and knowledgeable sales and marketing team can also be a solution to their need. Some questions you may want to ask to determine solutions in your business analysis work are: what are the possible solution options out there, whether in the marketplace or within the organization? You also want to ask, are there existing capabilities within the organization that can be leveraged? Do we need to actually invest to buy a new tool? Can we repurpose something that is already in use or even extend an existing solution? What solutions are the solutions available to us? Are they technically and economically viable? What resources do we need to implement this solution? What resources, human, what kind of people do we need? What skill level do we need? What other forms of resources, what do we need exactly to be able to deploy this solution successfully? You might also want to begin to think about the delivery methodology or the approach you want to use to deliver on your solution. Context. The concept of context sometimes can be quite confusing, but let's take it as simply as we can here. So context are circumstances that influence or are influenced by the change, right? So whatever within the environment that influences or is influenced by the change you are trying to enable, you can describe that as the context. The BABOC lists several things that can be considered as context, attributes of context. So you have, for example, you can have behavior, culture, the competitors, government, infrastructure, product, technology. There are so many things that would fall under the category of context. To bring it home, using our sales and marketing case study. So the competitors and their products can be the items we have under context here. You also want to understand the industry trends. What is the organization sales and profitability numbers? What are their processes and policies that impact that change you are trying to enable? Who are the industry regulators? Is the product, you want to also understand if you are working, if your project involves enhancing or creating a new product, are there seasonalities that impact that product? The demographics. So some questions that I have here that can help you determine context. You want to know who, you want to ask your stakeholders or your SMEs, who are the competitors in the industry? What is the demographics of our customers, the users of this product or the process we are trying to improve? What alternative products do we have in the marketplace that can replace our product? If customers go to the market and not satisfied with our product, what are the alternatives out there? Who are the market leaders? Again, is our product cyclical? Are they seasonal? Who are the regulators? What are the critical regulations and policies we need to comply with? So all of that can help you put in context the change you are trying to enable. Value represents the worth or the significance of the solution to stakeholders. Sometimes another word I want to use for value, just to simplify it, is I describe value as desired business outcomes. So examples of desired business outcomes can be increased profitability, reduced cost, increased market share. So again, using our sales and marketing case study, for the sales and marketing department, some of their desired outcomes of value could be increased profitability, increased market share, improved customer experience, also improved employee experience, because they also want to make sure their employees are happy so that they can serve their customers better. Questions you want to ask to help you determine the value for the solution you are creating is what are the profitability and revenue goal for each line of business? You also want to try to understand the strategic goal of the sales and marketing team and the organization overall. What is the current customer and employee satisfaction rating? What is the average industry growth rate? You also want to pay attention to some key KPIs for your industry or the products you are the product or process you are trying to improve. Okay, so we've talked about all the 6 core concepts. So we're going to take our next poll very quickly. Joanne, you want to help with the poll question? So what are the 6 core concepts? Again, and this is for the benefit of 39% that were not aware of the core concept model before now. Of course, the other percentage that no can also help us here, just again to gauge understanding. So what are the 6 core concepts in the business analysis core concept model? Okay, yeah. Okay, we can move on very quickly because of time. Thank you so much for your response. Thank you. Now, I would share briefly with you a framework that I've put together using the core concept model. So the first step for any solution I'm trying to deliver or enable, the first step I will take is to identify who my stakeholders are. Again, bearing in mind that stakeholder identification is not it done once and for all. You can do it periodically as your project, as you go along on your project. And some of the techniques I would use to identify stakeholders is process analysis, the review of the organizational structure or model. I would also perform interface analysis to identify key players. Of course, try not to forget your external stakeholders if they are relevant to your change, okay? So the next thing I would do is to engage my stakeholders in meetings to understand the context, right? Remember what we listed could be possible context, possible information that helps you understand the change you are dealing with, the business analysis work, the scope, and all of that. Context will help you determine what is in scope and out of scope, and helps you, kind of understand the work you are doing better. And of course, what I can, there are various techniques I can use in engaging stakeholders to understand context. It could even be as simple as conducting a survey. It could be engaging them one-on-one in interviews or as a group in workshop, performing document analysis, performing observation, observing the way the work is done, and also learning from those interactions. The next step to do is to then define it, because I've engaged the stakeholder to understand context. And part of the question I would ask in those sessions is what the needs are. I would try to understand the needs from the perspective of the stakeholders. Also, I could also even ask them questions around their goals and their vision in those engagements. So the next step would then be to define and validate the needs, right? I've engaged them, I've taken notes in those sessions with them, defining and identifying the need, defining it clearly so that we are on the same page. And some of the techniques here largely elicitation techniques, similar to what I've applied during understanding context. The next step here would be to define expected value. Again, some of these questions I would have asked while I was understanding concept, but I know that if I don't get all the information I need, I cannot always book sessions with the stakeholder. But of course, I want to pay attention to the usage of the time of the stakeholder and use their time effectively and efficiently. Again, elicitation technique that applies to defining needs and understanding context applies here too. I would then move on to assess the change. So based on all the information I've collected, what are the changes we need to enable? What are the things that need to change for us to get the expected value for the organization. So understanding the needs, which is the current state, defining the expected value, which is the future state, helps me then perform a gap analysis. And from the gap analysis, I can define what needs to change. That helps me in assessing the change. Of course, one very key technique I recommend here is change impact assessment. If you're an IIBA member, I did a webinar last year that looked at this technique in detail, so you can access that video. The next step, the next and final step here would then be, having identified all the changes that need to happen, begin to implement all these changes to be able to arrive at the final solution that would create value for my stakeholders. So this is the 6-step framework, solution delivery framework. And this framework works whether it's a process initiative, whether it's technology, irrespective of the type of change you are trying to enable. If you work with this framework, you would get there. Again, remember, the business analysis core concept model gives you a big picture, like a system thinking, so that you look through, you are systematic in your approach to solving business problems. So I would love to share with you the business analysis core concept model. Like we all know, I don't know if you're all familiar with the saying that says a picture is worth 1,000 words. So as great business analysts, we all know that visual models and diagrams are great ways to manage the complexity of business analysis information we deal with. We gather lots of information directly and indirectly. Visual models provide robust sets of tools that help us depict and represent complex and bulky information, and makes it very easy to communicate to our stakeholders and drive understanding. And this is, I've applied that concept in designing what I call the business analysis core the canvas, right? Just, again, I call it a one-page strategy document for your project, if you would allow me. So this canvas was inspired by the desire to simplify seemingly difficult to understand concept to a group of aspiring business analysts in my business analysis practicum program. So I realized a lot of them struggle to understand this really. And in the course of explaining it and applying it to various projects they've been part of in their prior life, we came up with this one-page summary of what your business analysis work can be all about. I realized that just listing the core concept was not enough to help newcomers into the business analysis space grasp and apply these ideas in their business analysis work. So I designed this canvas alongside some short case study that has helped our learners to identify and understand what each of these mean for a business analysis work. I have found this very useful and in my personal work as a business analysis professional, and I hope you would also find it useful. I can share a copy of this canvas at the end of the presentation. So let me quickly run through how I've used application of this one-page strategy document for my project, like I would describe it. Again, answering all the questions for your core concept model will help you populate your canvas. For example, under context, you're asking what are the internal and external factors that are relevant to your change. For stakeholders, the question you are asking here, who are the stakeholders that are impacted by my change? Who are the people that would be interested in my work, who would influence the work I'm doing? For changes, you are asking what elements of the organization are changes or are changing or be impacted by your business analysis work. Again, like we said, needs is just a definition of the problem, the opportunity you are trying to help the business take advantage of, or a constraint you are trying to help them address. Solution, you are listing out what are the possible solutions you would create as a result of your business analysis work. And then value, you can just list out your expected business outcome. Again, this is not where you have to write so many texts, just a summary, highlight, bullet point of each of these concepts for as it applies to your project is enough. So let's quickly talk about application of the canvas, the one-page canvas. It's a one-page summary of your project. Like I said, a one-page strategy document of your project. So what the need is, the changes you want to enable, the solutions you will be creating, and the value you hope the stakeholders would enjoy at the end of your project. It's a great communication tool for business and non-business stakeholders on your project. It also, I use it for elicitation planning. Remember, it lists all my stakeholders. It also lists the needs. So with the understanding of the stakeholders, the context, and the need, I'm able to plan elicitation engagement with my stakeholders and begin to engage them. It's great. It's a great stakeholder onboarding tool. So you can have new stakeholders come in after the project kickoff, where everything about the project has been spoken about, and you have someone join midway in the project, and you have to engage that stakeholder in the course of your BA work. For me, standard practice when I want to engage stakeholders is to do what I call stakeholder onboarding. Is, bring them up to speed, tell them what the project is about. You don't just want to dump project work or business analysis work on the stakeholder. You want to improve their understanding, their knowledge about the work you are doing, so that they can participate with understanding. So it's a great one-page tool that talks about the context, the problem, the changes, the expected benefits as you move along your project. It is also a good starting point for organizational change management. As business analysts, some of us might be, this might be your responsibility, right? Sometimes you might have an OCM specialist. But for me, I've worked on projects where I doubled both as the BA and the organizational change management person. So the Canvas also helps, it makes starting the OCM piece of the work very easy, because I know all my stakeholders looking at that Canvas. At least I know the starting stakeholders, right? I know what the changes, potential changes would be. And that helps me start off. I validate what I have on the Canvas and then continue my OCM work as I continue on the project. Again, because for those that are operate in the agile environment where you have a whole solution, but you are creating those solutions in various iterations. Sometimes you might just lose track of what the end goal is, right? Because there are multiple iterations where you are delivering piecemeal. So the Canvas, which is a one-page summary of what your endpoint is, what your expected value is a great reference point and guardrail for all the team members as they continue to design and build in multiple iterations. You don't lose sight of the end goal, even though you are delivering in iterations. That brings me to the end of my presentation today. Again, my name is Oge. I'm the VP of Professional Development with IIBA Halifax. I'm an international speaker and writer. The lead coach at Pollard Consult. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with you and answer any questions we are not able to answer here. And of course, engage with you as you, we all continue to grow and learn in business analysis. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Ogi. I think it was very interesting myself. I have a question, but I will go last. We have one question from the audience. Ogi, can you help us understand how do you identify SMEs for different projects?
Okay, so I know I think I spoke briefly about it, but I can talk about it again. So first, most times when you start your project, your first meeting might be with your project sponsor or whoever is initiating the project, but that's the starting point. So in that first meeting, I also want to understand who the other stakeholders are, but I do not stop at just understanding, taking away just what I'm being told. I do further analysis because I'm a business analyst, right? And some of the techniques I use that I have found very useful is process model. I just try to, I understand the business under review and model the process. By so doing, what that helps me to do is, in modeling the process, I use the swim lane technique because it shows me all the players within the process, the customers, the suppliers, whoever is involved, external and internal. I also review the organizational model. I review prior project documentation to understand if this type of project has happened in the past, who were the typical stakeholders. I also perform what I describe as interface analysis. So, for example, I identify one stakeholder that is external to the business unit I'm working with. I then I also look at the other stakeholders they relate with. Do they benefit? Do they use any form of output from the business process work I am doing, from the work I'm doing? Do they enjoy any form of benefit? So those are the techniques I use. So process analysis, organizational modeling, interface analysis.
Thank you, Ogi.
You're welcome.
I have a question myself. I didn't know about the canvas and all of those that concept of one page, or you can see everything at once. And because it's something new, I have a question. How can we make sure that, I don't even know how to phrase the question properly. Doesn't this canvas overlap with whatever tools the project manager is using to task the tracks or the tasks, or to track the resources, or as you mentioned, on an agile world, doesn't it overlap with, for example, a Kanban board? Or how to make sure it remains useful?
Okay, so first, it doesn't overlap with your Kanban board. Remember, your Kanban board is your task list. Like, it's a view, a one-page view of what you're doing, what you plan to do, or what is being done. But this is showing you everything that pertains to your project in one view, right? And if you are working within in person in an office setting, it can just be printed in a wide sheet and put somewhere where everyone can see it. In fact, you can even use post-it notes to create section and say needs, stakeholders, and just stick it on the wall, right? So it doesn't also overrule your project management plan, because those are risk of tasks and activities and the resources responsible for them. So this doesn't in any way overlap with that. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? Okay. Call the BACCM work for small stories or tasks, or is it only best for whole projects? You can actually use it for, it depends on you, right? How do you want to use it for? So remember, it looks at a work from the perspective of context, stakeholders, needs, value, changes, and solution. So are you able to define that small stories or task from this 6 perspective? So maybe that's the question you should ask yourself before you start applying it. Are you able to define that story, that task you are involved in, from this 6 perspective?
Thanks, Ogi. Any suggestions in terms of elicitation tool? What tool or technique do you use for elicitation? I'm not sure if the question is related to the specific tool or a technique.
So, okay, let's talk about it from a technique perspective. Any tool can be used, right? Techniques I use, like I mentioned, surveys and questionnaire, workshops, focus groups, one-on-one interview, depending on the type of stakeholders you are dealing with, document analysis, observing. For example, the business may describe a problem. You want to observe to see that problem happen. You want to confirm it's a problem because it repeats itself. So those are techniques you can consider. But of course, there are so many techniques out there. But the BABOK has a list of techniques you can consider, but you need to think critically what technique is really relevant to this problem. What is useful here? You don't want to apply all the list of techniques that are available out there. So you need to think through, what technique do I need to get me the right information for this work I'm doing right now?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see more questions coming in. So, Ogi, thank you once again for the time today. It was a very interesting presentation. Thank you all
Sure.
of you that attended today our event, and to let you know that this event was recorded and it will be available in the chapter's YouTube page in the near future. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
for your engagement and attending. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.